Hello, I'm Shelley Swanlund, Vice President, Business Banking at CIBC. And I'm here today with Foran, Managing Director, Business Transition Planning. Sean, we want to talk a little bit about some of the business transition planning ideas and options that owners need to look at. So when you think about when you're looking to pass on ownership or control of your business, it takes a lot of thought and planning. There's a number of different options to consider when you're arranging for the transfer of your company. Can you talk a little bit about what the options are that people would think about and how that repairs to succession planning?
Sure. Shelley, I see it really in terms of keep or sell. There are really options within the decision to keep the business in the family, and there are options that entail selling the business to a third party. But in terms of keeping the business in the family, I think of pure succession planning as really grooming the successor. That would be option number one for the founder, the owner-manager, to groom somebody to step into their shoes, to own the shares, to own the business, and run the business as the founder typically did. So that would be option number one.
And would that always be a family member?
Usually.
Generally?
I find that's the first preference of families who've started up a business, is to try and perpetuate family ownership. It's not always desirable. The second generation doesn't always want to do what the first generation did. But that would be a reality that I see more often than not, the family wanting to keep it in the business. The second option for them, if it turns out that the next generation does not, in fact, share a common vision about the business going forward, is for the family to keep the business but to hire a professional manager. And we refer to that as an owner-investor option, because you can keep the business but you can hire professional management. Hopefully the next generation can manage the manager as effectively as mom and dad have, because these kids in the second generation will ultimately one day inherit mom and dad's shares in the business and be in the position of having to manage the manager. The third option would be what we call a hybrid option, where there might be kids who are interested in the business and those who aren't. And so you'll have children possibly owning equity someday, where some are active and some are passive. That can be a recipe for conflict. There are ways to manage that. You might just want to give the kids who are the passive owners a say in certain very confined circumstances, such as considering a merger or an acquisition, or the business needing to increase its debt levels. But we believe that we're best advised to let the generation who's going to be active in the business to actually have the shares, and then try and use other assets from the estate to equalize kids who are not going to be actively involved. But those would be the three keep the business in the family options. And then the sell options would be, do I sell to management? Right. Do I sell to a third party? I could sell also to family, and that might be a good thing to do. The statistics tell us that successions go much better when the next generation has some skin in the game, either sweat equity or they've actually purchased equity. Those transitions tend to go better. Makes sense. We appreciate things that we have to work for more than things that are just gifted to us. So the sale to a third party, be it family or a third party, a management buyout, a sale to a financial buyer or a strategic buyer. Those would be the range of options, and our colleagues in mid-market investment banking do a great job of orchestrating that process.
So you've talked about kind of the two options around succession planning or selling the company, but really, since every business is different, every exit plan would look a little bit different. But are there some common themes or reoccurring themes that you see with your clients that you could share so people can start thinking about those?
I think it's important to understand as a family what the objective for the business is. Is it very important to your family to keep the business in the family, or is it not so important? So sitting down and talking about the family's objectives for the future would be an important starting point. Understanding the value of what it is that you're dealing with, understanding what it needs from leadership going forward. Tax planning is an important conversation to be had in all this. Can the family transition to the next generation in an effective way? There are ways for mom and dad to transition the business to the next generation and pay no tax. If they can isolate the retained earnings value in the business, that's already tax-paid money in the business. They can transition that from generation to generation. No tax is paid, and mom and dad can take money off the table for their retirement.
I'm sure a lot of your clients like to hear about that option.
They do, and they don't always know that it's there, so they don't know what they don't know sometimes. So I think getting people in line with what the possibilities are for the future is very much important. And then defining a transition plan and how long it's going to take. Are there going to be milestones? Are potential successors going to be evaluated on a regular basis? very important, I think, not just for the successor and the founders, but also for the employees and the other stakeholders in the business to see that the intended successor is having to go through their paces and be evaluated. So there's a much greater likelihood of acceptance from all the stakeholders when that succession process has been completed.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks.
Sean Foran, Managing Director of Business Transition Planning at CIBC.